Welcome to the AstroGuy Podcast. I'm your host, Wayne Zuhl. Summer is here, and June brings warm nights and plenty to see in the skies. In this episode, we'll cover when and where to catch the visible planets, highlight a spectacular lunar crater, update you on major space missions, and tour Lyra, one of the smallest, most dazzling constellations overhead. Let's dive right into our planetary roundup. Mercury begins June lost in the sun's glare but becomes visible by the 6th. Look to the western horizon about 30 minutes after sunset to spot it at magnitude minus 1.4, roughly 7 degrees above the horizon. Over the month, Mercury will set progressively later, with the latest set time being 10:09 p.m. on the 26th. Though it dims from magnitude minus 1.4 down to magnitude plus 0.36 by month's end, binoculars or a small telescope at low power will help you pick it out against the twilight glow. On the evening of the 6th, Jupiter will appear about 3.5 degrees slightly above and to the left of Mercury. And on the 7th, Jupiter will be 2.5 degrees to the left of Mercury. And on the evening of the 26th, the 3.3% illuminated waxing crescent moon will be just over 4 degrees to the right of Mercury. This will be a stunning sight in binoculars. Brilliant Venus dominates the morning sky this month. On June 1st in Pisces, Venus rises at 3:24 a.m. at magnitude minus 4.4, displaying a 50% illuminated last quarter phase at 23 arcseconds across. By June 30th, now in Taurus, Venus has dimmed slightly to magnitude minus 4.15, showing a waning gibbous phase that is now 18 arcseconds across and rising before 2 a.m. On June 22nd, look for the 13% illuminated waning crescent moon about 6 degrees above and to the left of Venus, an easy naked eye or binocular pairing. On June 1st, Mars is glowing at magnitude 1.2, riding high in the southwestern sky in Leo at dusk, with a disk just under 6 arcseconds across. The planet sets at nearly 1 a.m. on the 1st. You'll need a steady atmosphere and a larger telescope at high power to spot any details on the surface of Mars this month. By the end of June, the red planet has faded slightly to magnitude 1.4 and appears even smaller at just under 5 arcseconds wide. While telescopically Mars isn't great this June, the planet does have some interesting pairings in the sky. On the 1st, the 38% waxing crescent moon will appear about 7 degrees above and to the left of Mars, while on the 17th, Mars passes about 3/4 of a degree above magnitude 1.35 Regulus, and will be within 1 degree of the star from the 15th through the 20th. This will be fun to watch. On June 29th, from a small region of land in South America, Mars will be occulted by the moon. For the rest of us, we'll have a close passage of Mars. For observers near 40 degrees north latitude, they will experience Mars just 20 arc minutes above the 24% waxing crescent moon. This will be amazing in a telescope at low power and should be impressive with binoculars as well as with the naked eye. On June 1st, Jupiter is shining brightly at magnitude minus 1.9 and showing a disk 32 arcseconds across. The planet sits low in the west at dusk. Because it hugs the horizon, expect atmospheric shimmering and haze when viewing through a telescope. By mid-June, Jupiter disappears into the twilight and will return to the morning sky later this summer. Jupiter will appear near Mercury on the 6th and 7th. Definitely try to spot this pair. Saturn spends all of June in Pisces. On the 1st, Saturn rises at 2:26 a.m. and is glowing at magnitude 1.08. while spanning almost 17 arcseconds across, and with the rings, the system spans 39 arcseconds wide. By the end of June, Saturn rises at 12:35 a.m. It appears very slightly dimmer, at magnitude 0.96, and appears an imperceptibly small amount larger. Even binoculars can hint at the rings under dark, clear skies, but a telescope reveals Saturn's full glory, its rings, subtle banding, and, if you're lucky, some of its brighter moons. On the morning of the 19th, the 44% waning crescent moon will be 4 degrees to the left of Saturn. Uranus rises in Taurus about 45 minutes before sunrise on June 1st, so it's lost in the twilight. But by mid-June, it's now rising about 2 hours before sunrise. Uranus is glowing dimly at magnitude 5.8, showing a disk spanning 3.7 arcseconds across. Finding this pale blue star is a little bit easier this month, as it's located just a few degrees south of the Pleiades and 5.5 degrees northeast of Venus. A telescope at 100 power shows its turquoise hue. Binoculars may still struggle until later in June when the planet is higher above the horizon. Uranus rises earlier each day en route to its November opposition. Neptune glows faintly at magnitude 7.8, while its disk spans 2.3 arcseconds across. The planet lies within 1.5 degrees of Saturn all month long, making it much easier to find. Use binoculars or a low-power telescope to spot this distant bluish star near Saturn's rings. Under dark skies at high magnification, Neptune's subtle blue-green hue becomes apparent. Unfortunately, there are no good comets or meteor showers that are visible this month. Here's a quick space mission update. On June 9th, the Axiom 4 crew will launch atop a SpaceX Falcon 9 rocket for a 2-week stay aboard the ISS. Operated by Axiom Space, this will be their most science-intensive mission yet, comprised of more than 60 experiments from 31 countries, including the US, India, Hungary, Poland, Brazil, Saudi Arabia, and Nigeria. Research spans human physiology, Earth observation, life sciences, and materials science. The crew, hailing from the US, Hungary, Poland, and India, is commanded by former NASA astronaut Peggy Whitson. Good luck to the Axiom 4 team. In other space news, Japan's private company iSpace aims to land its Resilience lander on the Moon no earlier than June 5th. Resilience carries multiple science payloads, including a micro rover to explore the lunar surface. After a previous mission failure, this attempt should provide invaluable data and hopefully live up to its name. Speaking of the Moon,
now it's time for the
Lunar Feature of the Month.
This month, we're focusing our attention on one of the Moon's most dramatic impact features, Langrenus Crater. If you've never spent time observing it before, you're in for a treat. Langrenus lies right on the eastern edge of Mare Fecunditatis, the Sea of Fertility, and it's hard to miss. Spanning about 132 kilometers across, or 82 miles, it's a large, sharply defined crater with steep terraced inner walls and a beautifully preserved central mountain peak complex that rises nearly a kilometer above the crater floor. Around day 3 or 4 of the lunar cycle, and about 2 days past full moon, are the best times to observe this crater with a telescope, as low sun angles cast long shadows that really make its features pop. Even at low power, Langrenus is striking, but crank up the magnification and you'll be rewarded with subtle details, slumped walls, secondary impacts, and rate ejecta surrounding the rim. It's a crater that really shows off the power of the event that created it. The crater is named for Michael Florent van Langren, a 17th century Flemish astronomer and pioneer in lunar cartography, who's credited with producing the first known lunar map that attempted to systematically name features on the Moon. That was way back in 1645, decades before Giovanni Riccioli's more familiar naming scheme took hold. Van Langren's map, which he titled Pleniluni Lumina Austraica Philippica, wasn't just scientific, it was political. He named craters after Catholic royalty, religious figures, and scientists, reflecting both his worldview and the politics of the time. While his system didn't stick, it was a bold and pioneering step in the development of selenography, the science of mapping the Moon, and we get to enjoy the crater named in his honor. Okay, it's time to leave the solar system and explore the small constellation Lyra. While it may be small in size, it's one of the most recognizable and fascinating constellations in the northern sky. Named after the lyre, a stringed musical instrument from Greek mythology, Lyra is steeped in lore, history, and many deep sky wonders. In Greek mythology, Lyra represents the lyre of Orpheus, the legendary musician whose music could charm anyone, even wild beasts. According to the myth, when Orpheus died, Zeus placed his lyre in the heavens to honor him. The constellation is best seen in the summer months. It's easy to find thanks to Vega, Lyra's brightest star and one of the brightest stars in the sky. Vega forms the top corner of the Summer Triangle, a prominent asterism that also includes Deneb and Cygnus and Altair in Aquila. Let's talk about Vega for a moment. Located just 25 light-years from Earth and glowing at magnitude 0, Vega has been well studied. It was the first star after the Sun to be photographed, and the first to have its spectrum recorded. In fact, Vega is believed to have been the North Star around 12,000 BC due to Earth's precession, and it will return to that role in about 12,000 years. One of the constellation's best-known visual treats is Epsilon Lyrae, which is also referred to as the Double-Double. At first glance with the naked eye, it looks just like a single fourth-magnitude star. But if you grab a pair of binoculars and look just northeast of Vega, you'll see that the star splits into two. That alone is cool, but when you point a telescope at it, that's when the real fun begins. Each of those two stars is itself a close double, and with a modest telescope under steady skies, you can split each of them, revealing 4 stars in total. It's one of those sights that never fails to impress. The two main pairs are separated by about 3.5 arc minutes, and are easily split with binoculars, but to resolve the tight inner pairs, you'll want at least a 3-inch telescope, and around 120 power magnification. One pair is oriented almost vertically and the other almost horizontally, so when you get a good view, the symmetry of the system really jumps out at you. The northeastern pair is known as Epsilon 1 Lyrae and is made up of 2 stars that are magnitude 4.7 and 6.2 that are separated by just 2.35 arcseconds. Just southwest of it is Epsilon 2 Lyrae, with magnitudes of 5.1 and 5.5. They are separated by 2.3 arcseconds. All 4 stars are white A-type main sequence stars, sitting about 162 light-years away from us. There's evidence that each of these 4 stars actually have additional companions, making this a potentially much more complex multiple system, with possibly up to 11 stars in total, although the other member stars are all much fainter. Now let's dive into some of Lyra's best deep sky objects. Let's start with the open cluster NGC 6743. This sparse open cluster sits quietly in the northeastern portion of the constellation, located about 4,500 light-years away from Earth and consisting of a scattered group of stars spread across an area 6 arc-minutes in diameter. The cluster glows at magnitude 8.2, so you want a 6-inch or larger scope and a dark sky to get the best view of it. What you'll see at the eyepiece is a sparse, somewhat irregular patch of stars. There's no standout bright stars anchoring the group, just a gentle sprinkling of starlight in a rich star field. If you're using a wide-field eyepiece, take your time and let your eyes sweep the area. It's a subtle object, but once spotted, it has a quiet charm to it. Locating it is really easy. Start at 4th magnitude Delta Lyrae, the second closest star to Vega in the parallelogram, and imagine a line to 3rd magnitude Sulafat, the furthest from Vega in the parallelogram, and continue in that direction for a little more than 3 degrees, and you should spot NGC 6743. Next on our tour is the open cluster NGC 6791. This cluster is exceptionally old for an open cluster. Most open clusters are relatively young, on the order of a few 100 million years old. But NGC 6791? It's been around for 8 billion years. It's not only ancient, but it's incredibly rich, containing thousands of stars. In fact, it blurs the line between a typical open cluster and a globular cluster, making it a bit of a deep sky oddity. NGC 6791 is listed at magnitude 9.2. It's located around 13,000 light-years away and spans 16 arc-minutes in size. With my 8-inch Dob from a dark sky site in New Jersey, the cluster reveals itself into a beautiful spray of faint stars with subtle color variations. It's also metal-rich, meaning its stars contain a high proportion of elements heavier than helium. This is unusual for such an old cluster, and it's part of what makes NGC 6791 so interesting to astronomers. Its chemical makeup has challenged models of stellar evolution and cluster formation, making it a well-researched object by professional astronomers. To locate NGC 6791, start at Vega and sweep 7.5 degrees east till you come to a pair of 4th magnitude stars that are about a degree apart. From the southernmost star, Theta Lyrae, sweep 1 degree southeast and you should spot the cluster. Okay, maybe sparse open clusters aren't your thing. That's alright, because Lyra has a couple of show-stopping objects that you'll return to again and again. Let's explore the globular cluster M56. Located about 33,000 light-years away, it is a fairly compact and moderately dense globular cluster. It's relatively bright at magnitude 8.3 and spans just over 8 arc-minutes in size. In small telescopes, it appears as a soft circular haze with a slightly brighter core, surrounded by a grainy outer glow. But under dark skies with my 8-inch SCT, many of its member stars are easily revealed. M56 contains roughly 230,000 stars, many of them ancient, around 13 billion years old. It's classified as an intermediate concentration or Class X globular, and unlike nearby globulars like M13 or M3, M56 doesn't have that same bright, tightly packed core, but that's part of its charm. Finding M56 is easy. Use the parallelogram of Lyra. Start with the 2 southernmost stars and imagine a line from magnitude 3.5 Chiliac to Sulfat. Extend that line in a direction for 4 degrees, then sweep south just under a degree and you'll spot M56. Of course, no tour of Lyra would be complete without an extended visit to Messier 57, the Ring Nebula. This is one of the most iconic planetary nebulae in the sky. Messier 57 lies about 2,300 light-years away from Earth and spans roughly 1 light-year across. It glows at magnitude 8.8, spanning almost 4 arc-minutes in size. M57 is a planetary nebula. A planetary nebula is formed after a sun-like star reaches the end of its life. The star sheds its outer layers, creating a glowing shell of ionized gas, while the hot, dense core, now a white dwarf, continues to radiate intense ultraviolet light that causes the surrounding gas to fluoresce. Visually, M57 is one of those objects that wows observers at every level. In a small telescope, it appears as a tiny smoke ring-shaped blur, a grayish, ghostly oval suspended in space. The ring is fairly bright and easy to spot, even under suburban skies. In my 8-inch SCT from a dark location, I can spot some structure in the ring, a brighter outer rim, and a fainter interior. Under good conditions, the nebula stands up well at higher magnifications. The central star is magnitude 15.3, so it's usually only visible in larger telescopes under very steady skies. But even without it, the nebula is a showstopper. This object is worth exploring whenever you can see it. If you're using an O3 or a UHC filter, you'll really see the nebula pop. The contrast improves dramatically, bringing out more of that subtle texture in the ionized gases. Finding the Ring Nebula is a breeze. It's located almost exactly midway between Chiliac and Sulfat, and just a touch north of the line that connects them. This month, our Deep Sky Challenge object is NGC 6765. This is a small, faint planetary nebula located about 4,000 light-years from Earth. It's often described as a peculiar planetary, and for good reason. Unlike the more symmetrical ring-like appearance of M57, NGC 6765 looks more like a tangle of gas with a distorted, irregular shape that hints at a complex evolutionary history. This object likely resulted from an unusually shaped ejection of material, possibly influenced by interactions with a binary companion. Visually, it's a challenging target, and you'll need at least an 8-inch scope under dark skies to pick this one out. I've seen it in a 10-inch scope with a filter, and it was faint but visible. It's listed at magnitude 12.9 and is small at only around 40 arc-seconds across. Through the eyepiece at moderate to high power, it appears as a faint, elongated glow, more like a small smudge than a classic round planetary nebula. Under good skies with an O3 filter, its nebulosity becomes more apparent, but it's still subtle. To locate NGC 6765, start at Sulfat, the southernmost star of the parallelogram asterism in Lyra. From there, move about 2.5 degrees east and 2 degrees south, and you should spot it. There's a 9th magnitude star about 4 arc-minutes to the west of the nebula. Because it's faint and oddly shaped, it can be mistaken for a faint galaxy, or even missed entirely if you're sweeping too fast. Slowing down and using averted vision can really help you to locate it. I hope that you'll take a shot at trying to locate this planetary nebula, and that these objects become favorites of yours as well. Well, that's all for this episode. Thank you so much for joining us, and I hope that you found our time together to be fun and helpful. If you have questions or episode suggestions, please email us at astroguypodcast@gmail.com, or leave us a text or a voicemail at 973-404-0380. If you're not already a member, please join the AstroGuy Podcast group on Facebook. You can also visit our YouTube channel, the AstroGuy Podcast, for past episodes and other surprises. Please do all those podcast and YouTube things, such as like, subscribe, comment, and share. It really, really, really helps us. If you'd like to help support the AstroGuy Podcast and YouTube channel, you can buy us a cup of coffee. The money is used to maintain and update the equipment that we use to create and publish the show. The link is in the show notes. Thank you again for joining us, and may your skies be clear. As always, Carpe Noctem, seize the night.
I'm Zuhl, and this was the AstroGuy Podcast. Thank you for listening. As always, your questions, comments, and suggestions are welcome. Keep wondering. Keep your eyes on the sky. Have fun. Carpe Noctem. Seize the night.